Before we start the session, I would like everyone to keep their phones on silent. Please make sure it's mandatory to keep your phones on silent so that everyone's engaged. And everyone remains seated, don't move during the speeches are going on. That will interrupt the moderated session. So I'm pretty sure there's a lot of students here, so I'll start with the G20 introduction. Someone rightly said, regardless of where we live or what language we speak, a smile has the incredible power to heal. Everyone smiles in the same language, and that's what brings us all together. Namaste, delegates. On behalf of the G20 Interfaith Forum, in collaboration with MIT World Peace University and the Interfaith Alliance for Safer Communities, I, Vishwesh Paresh Murkekar, your host, welcomes you to this magnificent Mahatma Gandhi Hall. The G20 Interfaith Forum, launched in 2014 during Australia's G20 presidency, brings together diverse nations, religious communities to influence global agendas. This summit, held in Pune this time, is a platform for leaders, representatives for various organizations, government officials, and the civil society to come together to share experiences and provide added emphasis to suggestions identified throughout the year in preparation for the G20 summit. Without further ado, let's begin this session with the ringing of the World Peace Bell. I would like to invite our distinguished panelists to initiate this event. Please, can we have a huge round of applause for them? Thank you, delegates. You may please take your seats now. Now, I would like to call upon our Professor of School of Electrical Engineering, Dr. Bharat Chaudhary, to introduce the G20 topic.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to G20 Interfaith Summit 2023, Shaping World Peace and Sustainable Development through Interfaith Harmony. Theme of this breakout session is Global Perspective on Education. On behalf of G20 Interfaith Summit 2023 and MIT World Peace University, I feel honored to extend a warm welcome to all the honorable panelists and esteemed delegates present here. Currently, we are facing unprecedented challenges such as social, economic, environmental, driven by accelerating globalization and a faster rate of technological developments. At the same time, these forces are providing us with countless new opportunities for the innovation and technological excellence for the benefit of humanity. To navigate through such uncertain present and future, the students need to get value-based universal education. Hence, this breakout session carries special importance in shaping the future. This session will focus on aspects of global education agendas most pertinent for religious and interreligious communities, including education quality and access, and attention to ethics and value-based education. There are many challenges for this approach in global settings, such as religions need a place at the table because they are crucial providers of education and have power to make education more inclusive. To what extent should educational institutions aim at teaching about religion as opposed to inculcating religion, and what training for teaching personnel does this require? How can education be structured to assist in instilling moral codes to make a difference in eliminating things like corruption, conflict, and prejudice? How can faith-based groups best engage with government in helping to expand access to education? Value and ethics-based education is surrounded by a lot of fear from both sides of the equation. How ethics, values, and virtues-based education be structured to reduce fears and misapprehensions so that it can be beneficial to all. To deliberate on this important challenge, today we have Professor Michael Young, Professor of Law and former President of Texas A&M University, former Chair, U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. Professor Young would be moderating this session. Hearty welcome, Professor Young, for your august presence. We have eminent panelists for the session, Mr. Mathis Ho, Executive Director, Lemena Institute, Jakarta, Indonesia, Ms. Maria Lucia Uribe Torres, Executive Director of Arigato International, Geneva, Switzerland, Mr. Halim Mahfouz, Director, Islamic Boarding School, Jakarta, Indonesia, Mr. J. Heinrich Arnold, Pastor and Teacher at Brother Hope Schools, New York, USA, Mr. Vishal Talreja, Co-Founder, Dream a Dream, Professor Marshall Sheldon, Executive Dean, Faculty of Engineering, Nelson Mandela University, South Africa, Dr. Sanjay Kamtekar, Chief Academic Officer, MIT World Peace University, Pune, India, Dr. Akshay Malhotra, Dean Academics, MIT World Peace University, Pune, India. I welcome all the eminent panelists of the session. I also welcome all the delegates present for this session. To give more insights on the theme, I request our technical team to play a curtain raiser video about the session. Thank you.
This session is based on education. Education is essential in changing moral codes to make a difference in eliminating corruption, conflict, and prejudice. Values and ethics-based education is surrounded by a lot of fear from both sides of the equation. It should focus on empowering students to engage with questions, resolve conflicts, engage, negotiate, and make choices, rather than telling them what is right and wrong. The education breakout session will focus on aspects of global education agendas most pertinent for religious and interreligious communities, including education quality and access, and attention to ethics and value-based education.
Okay. So moving on, we'll have the introduction of our speakers now. Can we have the next slide, please? So, for Dr. Michael K. Young, Professor of Law and former President, Texas A&M University, USA, former Chair, U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedom. He's the 25th President of Texas A&M University, 2015 to 2021, led Texas A&M's growth as a Tier 1 research institution and raised $4.25 billion through Lead by Example campaign, achieved over $1 billion in annual research funding, and was the former president of the University of Washington, where he promoted federal research funding and innovation. He has had a distinguished career spanning law, diplomacy, and academia, including positions at the US State Department and international arbitration rules. Can we have a huge round of applause for him? Finally, I would like to invite our moderators, Dr. Bharat Chaudhary and Dr. Deepak Hojara, to felicitate Professor Michael K. Young. So, Thank you, sir. Can we have the next slide, please? Yes. So Dr. Sanjay Kamtekar, sir. He's been the Chief Academic Officer of MIT World Peace University, Pune, India. He's done an MS and PhD in analytical instrumentations from the University of Massachusetts, Lowell, an MBA in managerial finance strategy from DePaul College of Business, USA, executive education in leadership, strategy, and marketing management from Northwestern University, Kellogg School of Management, Division Vice President, Global Marketing and Strategy with CAMECA, Madison, Paris, Manchester, Managing Partner of Saku Global, LLC, a consulting firm, VP Sales of Marketing and Business Development with Mox Tech Incorporation, and Director Sales and Marketing with XOS. Can we have a huge round of applause for him? Finally, I would like to call upon Professor Michael K. Young to felicitate Professor Dr. Sanjay Kamtekar. I would like to kindly request Professor Michael K. Young and Professor Dr. Sanjay Kamtekar to stay here in order to felicitate the remaining panelists. Next slide, please. Mr. Matthias Ho, Executive Director, Lemina Institute, Jakarta, Indonesia. He's been leading the religious literacy program in Jakarta, trained thousands of Indonesian teachers since 2021 for multi-faith harmony, formed key partnerships with governments and institutions, international speaker and contributor to religious literacy literature, holds degrees from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, USA. Please, let's have a huge round of applause for him. Thank you, sir. Moving on. We have Miss Maria Lucia Uribe. She is the Executive Director of Geneva at Arigato International Geneva, Switzerland. She leads ethics education for children in 30 plus countries overseas for child rights initiatives, INEE, and Learning to Live Together program roles. Steering group member for International Partnership for Religion and Development. Please, can we have a huge round of applause for her? Thank you, ma'am. Now we have Mr. Abdul Halim Mahfooz, Director at Islamic Boarding School, Jakarta, Indonesia. He studied Southeast Asian history at Cornell University, taught English at the IAIN Sunan Ample Language Institute and Madras Aliyah Negeri, MAN Suraya. He's participated in the Southeast Asian Student Leaders Program, worked for the Surya Daily, the Asia Foundation, Burson Master, Coca-Cola, Indonesia, Standard Chartered Bank, Partnership for Governance Reform, Astro Subscription Television, and Halma Strategic. Overall, he's done a lot of roles altogether. He's managed the Roman Education and Islamic Boarding School Foundation and took care of the Septak Islamic Boarding School in Jombak. Can we have a huge round of applause for him? Thank you, sir. Now we have Mr. J. Henrik Arnold. He's been a pastor and teacher in Brother Hoff Schools, New York, USA, a medical practitioner, musician, contributing writer to Plough Quarterly, shares messages from the gospel each Sunday on his own YouTube channel, and an overall amazing person. Therefore, can we have you on stage, sir? Thank you, sir. Now we have Mr. Vishal Talreja, co-founder of Dream a Dream, Ashoka Fellow, Eisenhower Fellow, and Salzburg Global Fellow. He's been a member of Catalyst 2030 and the Global Forum on the Future of Education and Skills 2030. He's been recognized as an architect of the future by the Worldseil Institute in Austria, advisor to reap benefit and mentor to startup NGOs and young social entrepreneurs. He's been awarded the Heroes of Bengaluru Award in 2018, and he's been a speaker at many TEDx events. He's authored research papers as well on the life skill assessment scale. He's been an active writer on development challenges and human interest stories. So, can we have you on stage? Can we have a huge round of applause for him? Thank you, sir. Next, we have Professor Marshall Shireen Sheldon, Executive Dean at Nelson Mandela University, South Africa. She holds a doctoral degree in chemical engineering with 24 years of higher education experience, NRF C2 rating recipient with 14 masters and 4 doctoral students graduated. Research funded by NRF, Water Research Commission, and an industry contributions. Prolific author, and with international publications, an impressive H-index, and active participation in conferences and symposiums. Ma'am, can we have you on stage? Can we have a huge round of applause for her? Yes, sir, got it, sir. Thank you. Next, we have Dr. Akshay Malhotra, the Dean Academics, MIT World Peace University, Pune, India. He is the Professor and Dean of Academics, MIT World Peace University. Decades of experience in academic leadership and administration. PhD in engineering from the Pennsylvania State University. Strong believer in the necessity of the formal education system to reinvent himself. Can we please have you on stage, sir? And a huge round of applause for him. Thank you, sir. Since we have proceeded with our felicitation, let's move on to the next section. I would like to invite our moderator this time, and I have the distinct honor of introducing a notable person whose contributions to legal, religious, and educational freedom have profoundly impacted our culture. Professor of Law and former president of Texas A&M University, Mr. Michael K. Young is a true expert in his field. His journey demonstrates his unwavering dedication to promoting freedom, knowledge, and understanding. His commitment to upholding one of our most fundamental human rights is best demonstrated by his tenure as the former chair of the US Commission on International Religious Freedom. We have the honor today of utilizing his profound knowledge and experiences today. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Michael K. Young, a talented and astute scholar with open arms. Let's have a huge round of applause for him.
Thank you very much. Is this on? Can you hear? Perfect. Thank you. Appreciate that kind introduction. I promise my remarks will be shorter than the introduction, if we could do that. We have a wonderful panel today with extraordinary experience in the sphere that I, having committed my entire life to, believes is absolutely central to our success in addressing all the other issues that we've talked about. And that's what makes this an important and exciting panel. And I know a number of our panelists, a number I'm just meeting for the first time today, but I know all of them have real insight into this important topic. So I'm going to say just a couple of words, then we'll ask each of our panelists in turn to take about 5 minutes. We really would like them to each take 5 hours, but that doesn't quite fit the schedule. And hopefully that will leave just a little bit of time at the end, perhaps for some dialogue among the panelists and perhaps some questions and answers as well. I just want to say briefly a couple of things, repeating a little bit of what I said this morning, which is we have a crisis on education of monumental proportion around the world. I mentioned 100 million street children. You can imagine without homes, without parents, they are not running to school every day. We have almost 44 million children displaced forcibly by conflict around the world. Again, going into camps, going into refugee camps or other places where, again, educational opportunities are limited at best, if not entirely non-existent. Almost 60 million children don't go to primary school. We have 244 million children under the age of 18 who have never had an opportunity for education of any sort. So the question then becomes, with that extraordinary resource totally unexploited, how do we begin to address these issues that we're thinking about? It's also the case, I think, that this is the tip of the iceberg. Inadequate education, education that may in fact be designed to be counterproductive and not productive is another global problem which I think we can't ignore. So we really have two critical issues that we're addressing today. One is to think a little bit about what goes on within the education as we move in the future. And I want to come back to that in just a second because we have a prior problem, which is how do we make education available? And again, going back to comments I made earlier, educational institutions have often been sponsored by churches, often been sponsored by faith-based institutions. Most of our great universities in America started, the private ones in particular, started from a religious orientation. That certainly was true throughout Europe, true in much of the rest of the world. Many churches helped sponsor primary education and secondary education throughout the world. The chances to expand and think about greater collaboration between governments and faith-based organizations to help expand that capacity is one of the things we would like to get put on the agenda of the G20, for them to think about. The governments may have the will, but frequently don't have the resources. Sometimes don't have the will either, but frequently, even if they do, their capacity to expand their educational system is often limited. How can we change that? The second part of it is, what should education contain? We have identified, and UN has identified, the G20 has identified serious global challenges ranging from the availability of healthcare, with 50% of the world's population not having adequate access to it. COVID exhibited and demonstrated the tremendous disparities in healthcare as well. When we look at conflict, conflict often arises in situations where information is skewed to motivate people to do things that creates that conflict. Education can sometimes exacerbate that, but it can also help if we get it right and if we think through what the content ought to look like carefully. It can also be something that generates the peace, the harmony, the acceptance, the respect, the dignity of all mankind that we talked about earlier in this morning's session and has been much of a theme of this conference as well. So we have these issues. And as I said in my very last iteration this morning, addressing issues like climate change require sophisticated understanding. These are complicated issues that don't really resolve themselves with slogans and don't resolve themselves with what we call in America bumper stickers. 2- and 3-word slogans do not resolve these critical issues. We have to understand them. We have to understand countries are in different places in the development pattern, have different needs, have different geographies, have lots of different incentives that may be different from one another. How do we come up with solutions that are sophisticated with respect to thinking about the science behind this, as well as an understanding of the politics that allows us to address that? That does not happen without education. So we have both serious issues of availability, access, and at the end of the day, content. And so that's what we really want to at least touch on a bit today. Obviously not going to go as deeply as we would like to go in this, but stimulate everybody's thinking. And I'm so pleased there's so many students in here because I'm old and I'm just getting older. The solutions to these problems, the capacity to address it, really relies in the back half of this room. So we're really thrilled that you're here with us today. Hope that this expands one's thinking about possibilities and needs and opportunities for you all to make kind of contributions to create the worlds that we really want to live in. So with that, let me start with, do we have Matthias with this? Where's Matthias? We'll go, I think we'll go through the order that I have here. Is Matthias not here today? I didn't notice. Oh, please. Yes, yes. Sorry, I was looking over here and you're over there.
Well, thank you, Mr. Moderator, Professor Yang. So given the very limited time, I think I'll just try to scratch the surface of the second question for this session, which is to what extent should educational institutions aim at teaching about religion as opposed to inculcating religion? And especially, I think the program that we do that I'm going to share in this presentation is related to what training of teaching personnel does this require. I think one of the issue in a multi-religious society like in Indonesia and in many other countries is that about the religious tolerance, the interfaith relations, and I think sometimes the answer to that people give is that, oh, we just simply need more education. What we found out basically from a lot of the facts is that it's not that simple, the answer. Having more education doesn't automatically bring a multi-faith society to be more tolerant and more peaceful. We need to keep in mind that the Al-Qaeda operatives that hijacked the airplane and slam it to the WTC, the tower, they are not uneducated. They are highly educated people. All right. So just to give a context, in Indonesia, we have 280 million people and more than 1,000 ethnicities. 87% are Muslims, about 10% are Christians, and the rest is other religions, Hindu, Buddhism, and also indigenous beliefs. Based on our state ideology, Indonesia is not a religious state, so there is no official state religion. But our state ideology, Pancasila, the 5 principles, actually affirms religion. It affirms the religious freedom. So religion is important in Indonesia. And according to our national education system law, religious education is mandatory in schools and universities. So from primary, secondary, up to university, religious education is compulsory. And the law says that for every student has the right to learn his or her own religion and taught by a teacher of the same religion. So I think the motivation is good, but about, I think 2017, 2018, there was a national survey done by a state Islamic university, a very reputable one in partnership with UNDP. And the result nationwide is that the level of opinion of intolerance and radicalism of Muslim teachers in Indonesia is very high. So the survey actually at that time focusing on teachers and lecturers of Islamic religious education, and also Muslim teachers, schools and others. So they found that it's very high, especially in madrasa, the Islamic schools, that it has more intolerance view. So the recommendation is actually quite logical. The recommendation is that the education, they need more religious literacy and interfaith education in the religious education. And then the religious education also needs to introduce other religion in that Islamic religious education, and I believe also in other religious education, and then need to expose the teachers to positive experience of diversity. So what we do is that we develop a program, what we call the cross-cultural religious literacy. So basically, cross-cultural religious literacy program is we train teachers on 3 competencies. The first one is personal competency. Is basically each religious person needs to understand his or her own religion well, especially what the faith teaches about treating the other people. And then secondly is that comparative competency is that it's not enough you just learn about your own religion. You need to learn about other people's religion, but from the perspective of that followers. So for example, me as a Christian, I need to learn from Mr. Mahfouz about Islam instead of just asking my pastor who doesn't know anything about Islam. And the third competency is that we need to develop a collaborative competency. We are different and we will remain different, but we have to be able to work together. So we developed that into a program basically for teachers, primary and secondary. Within 2 years, we get a very high response. We get more than 5,000 teachers already graduated from the program. And our partner expanded from only 1 partner. Now we have 18 and 19 partners. Because we began with Muslim teachers, right now the partners are mostly like National Mosque and other big Islamic institutions. We have Christian institution now. Next year we are planning to develop module for Hindu, Buddhist, and other teachers as well. We are also working with the Ministry of Law and Human Rights. Interestingly, I think that potential is not limited to Indonesia, because when I talk to the officials in Vietnam, an atheist state, and then also to Malaysia, the foreign minister, which is an Islamic state, both of the countries actually show interest about this religious literacy, because viewing it from their own national interest, they see that this is important and can help address the issue in their countries. And I just want to close this because of our Mr. Moderator, also former chair of U.S. USERF, Ambassador Rashad Hussain, the U.S. Ambassador for International Religious Freedom. Actually, his office asked us already to provide a briefing, so we already did a briefing with him and his staff on this program, because this is also in line with his initiative on Pathway to Respect, on how to use the education to help counter the rising of the religious intolerance. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful presentation. Thank you. I will say I'm thrilled that the United States actually thinks it can learn something from somebody else. That is a wonderful step forward for our young country. So with that, let me turn to Maria.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here today. We have very little time. I'm going to take the question about the fear of introducing ethics, values, or virtues-based education, and how to construct a values-based education that is beneficial for all. So let me start by saying that ethics education is perhaps one of the missing pieces in the puzzle to transform education around the world. And that ethics education, and there is evidence that clearly contributes to develop critical thinking in learners, that it contributes to children to be able to learn to respect others and to solve conflicts in more peaceful ways. There is evidence about that. But it is important to understand what is meant by ethics education, values-based education, virtues education. So when we talk about ethics education, it's not the same as moral education. It's not the same about teaching what is right and wrong. It was in the film. And very often, when we talk about ethics education, there is used the same as moral education. Nor it is the imposition of certain values under maybe a belief system to ask children, make children behave in certain ways. Ethics education is not shaping the learners in the ways we want them to be or we want them to become. That's not ethics education. In many parts of the world, this is done. So the differentiation is that when we talk about values education or virtues education, there is a focus on certain values, certain virtues that we want children to learn, and they are taught those values and virtues. When it comes to ethics education, it's teaching children how to think critically. It's about conscientization about their reality around them, how they can transform their realities. It's about the advantages they have, about their prejudices and stereotypes. It's about how they learn from the other. It's about interconnectedness. Ultimately, ethics is about relationships. The understanding that we hold the lives of others in our hands and that what we do and do not do have an impact on ourselves and others. It's how we uphold, protect, respect the dignity of each and every one, the human dignity. So ethics education is much more comprehensive, it's much more liberated, but it cannot be done in a vacuum. It requires certain pedagogy. So you cannot teach ethics education in a way. You need to nurture in the learners, with the spaces and opportunities, the ability for them to think critically, to reflect about ethical challenges in their societies, for them to connect with others, for them to see the other differently, to challenge their prejudices and stereotypes through practical methodologies. So it requires a child-centered and a dialogue-centered pedagogy. And I'm referring to Matthew's presentation as well, because ethics education is very critical when it comes also to religious education. Normally, there are three types of religious education, if you want, and Matthew's mentioned them in different ways: personal, comparative, and then collaborative. We can say that learning religion is one part, so learning your own religion, so you are instructed in your own faith. Learning about religion is comparative. So learning about other religions, history, learning from the religious other, that is more related to ethics education, the collaborative aspect that Matthew talked about. So it's how we relate to the other. The essence of ethics is Ubuntu, from the African saying, I am because you are. It's this understanding of the other. So as the time is running short, I would like to maybe share three challenges that I see in our work in promoting and integrating ethics education in different formal and non-formal education systems around the world. So the first one are the textbooks. And I think this is a very critical and sensitive discussion. We see a lot of bias in textbooks. UNESCO has conducted several research, and in most parts of the world, textbooks have bias against minority groups. In many textbooks, there is incitement to hatred and violence against certain groups of the population. History is being distorted to promote heroes that are from certain ethnic or religious group. And changes in curriculum are approved at times state level by people who do not have an understanding of education or the subjects in the particular areas. So this is a main challenge we have. Retrospective studies on genocide or interreligious, interethnic conflicts trace back that one of the factors leading to genocide has been textbooks that are biased. And this is very, very critical. So when you think of the textbooks, evaluation systems that are evaluating children on the basis of that, then you take an educator that has to teach that particular curriculum. And what we see is that in-service, pre-service of teachers is another major challenge. There is very little investment and prioritization of pre-service and in-service training of teachers, which means that teachers are not prepared to teach diversity in the classroom. So adults, we have more difficulties unlearning bias that we learn from when we're children. It's much more easier with children than with adults. So take an adult who has a position as a teacher that comes to the classroom and promotes their own views about things that will influence the lives of children. So in-service and pre-service is very challenging, and when it happens, it doesn't have a priority in terms of ethics education, for example. And the last is about religious communities. Very often, when we try to introduce ethics education through formal education, in majority religious countries, we have opposition from religious communities, because they believe that when you introduce ethics education, you will replace the religious education. And I believe there is a lack of trust between the education and religious communities, because in fact, what ethics education does is to promote more understanding about your own identity, being that religious identity or others, interfaith understanding, and promoting more social cohesion. But there is a monopoly in many countries of religious education by religious communities. Thereby, when you introduce ethics education, it's seen as the enemy in a way of religious education. So that's maybe one of the main challenges when we work with formal education. I'm going to stop here, Michael. I'm conscious about the time, but I'm happy to share also some of the experiences and also maybe solutions to this, maybe in the next interaction. Thank you.
Maria, thank you. I think there is probably not an organization in the country that has thought more about the content of education, particularly with respect to ethics, respect, dignity, and so forth. I just encourage you to go to their website, stay in touch with Maria. Their work is absolutely superb and a real foundation, I think, on which many, many places could build. Let me turn it over now to Mr. Halim Matsud.
Thank you. Thanks for Interfaith Summit inviting me here. I'm representing my institution. It's a Islamic boarding school, or called in Indonesia, pesantren. The Islamic boarding schools consist of the very key elements of this is number one, mosque. Number two is classrooms. Number three is medieval ages books that published by scholars in the Middle Ages. And number three is the leader. And number four and number five is the ethics. This is the key elements. And now this system has been in Indonesia since 15th century. But recently, by the growth of economy in Indonesia, the quality, and this forum also talking about the quality of education. The quality of education is somewhat switching a bit because of the strengthening economy in some class of the society, yeah, and particularly, and the pressure of the social media. Now, since the Facebook started in 2004, Twitter in 2006, and TikTok in 2016, doing education is not easy because the challenge is very real. We cannot use social media only because the influence of others is very serious. And that happens also to our students. In my institution, there are 6,000 students from junior high school, and university students. Yeah, that's from my institution. Other institutions in our network, I have a 10 network with 10 pesantrens, big and small. Big here means the largest pesantren has 43,000 students. Even though maybe they sleep, they cannot sleep. Maybe they sleep on standing because there's no space for them. Yeah, but this is the network that we have. But the challenge remains there, that it is not easy to maintain our message for our students because the influence of the environment is quite strong. Yeah, in particular for the even in Indonesia, it's 86% are Muslim, as Mr. Ho said. But from the 86%, we cannot maintain everybody is a good or devout Muslim. Maybe 10%, 5%, 7%, they are hardliners who do not really want to make Indonesia prosperous, but they want to grow for their own group. And this is one of the challenges. So the real challenge in Indonesia is not really from outside or from other faith, from other religion, but it comes also from people who claim themselves are Muslims. But they have a different, very different orientation, very different target, and particularly if they have financial objectives. Okay, so we really need to invite interfaith forum to do more to communicate among different groups, with not only between Islam and non-Islam, but within Muslims themselves. We identified just recently, 5 months ago, one big pesantren, big one, very very powerful in terms of financial. The leader was arrested because it promotes not for interreligious dialogue. It promotes I am the right one. So I think this is the opportunity for interdialogue forums for you gentlemen in this in this forum to do more on bridging the dialogue inter-religion, but also inside the religion, particularly in Islam, in context of Indonesia. I think that's what I would like to share with you. And how we do that, we'd like to promote our network that I call Pentahelix. Penta means five, helix is pillars. We need to promote Pentahelix, promoting 5 pillars in Indonesia in terms of communication. The 5 pillars, number 1 is government. Number 2 is civil society. And we categorize ourselves as a civil society. Number 3 is business community. Number 3 is academics. And number 4. And then number 5 is mass media. We can never ignore role of media in sending key messages. And for these messages, we already work hard. In every element, we already work with the university academics. We work with one university, Catholic university, and one with a Christian university. And we also ask our high school students to have a different visit to other Catholic schools or Christian schools. Yeah? And then for the business community, this is only for Indonesian context, where in Indonesian context, business community in Indonesia will consist of mostly Chinese descendant. And I invite this business community, and they would like to join our community and join the communication with one requirement, only one requirement. They must be a businessman, and they must be Chinese. Because this group of ethnics are really the group that really got the pressure in a very difficult time. Yeah, when there is anything comes up, they always put their fingers, oh, these are because of the Chinese descent. Yeah, so this is the really good opportunity for the inter-dialogue forum, interfaith dialogue, to step in Indonesia more and do more in Indonesia. We would be very happy to work with the international community to show the world that we can work properly and we can support each other, even though in Indonesia, some people would like to draw all the attention for their own interests. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think you really identify at least 3 really critical challenges we face. I love the fact that you're beginning to identify ways to actually address those, but the notion of scaling up a system but maintaining quality is a major challenge I think every country faces. you touch on social media and mass media. We could spend days talking about that and its impact on education and how important that has been. But raising that issue, I think, is important and important to keep in our mind. And then, of course, the challenges of a dominant religion that may assert its influence in ways that are not entirely consistent with some of these other larger goals that one might have as a global citizen. So very helpful. Thank you so much. Let me turn now to Pastor Heinrich Arnold. Thank you.
Well, thank you. It's good morning, everybody. It's wonderful to be here. Thank you for the warm welcome. And it's amazing what we're all learning this morning and over the many talks about many issues. And so I'm not here today as an expert on education, but I've been a pastor for about 15 years. Now, I did teach school for about 30 years prior to that, elementary school, and I'm also a medical practitioner. But I'd like to reflect kind of more globally, since this is a global perspectives on education. Why? Why are we here? What is education? It's about children. And we were all children one day, and children are so important. They're so beautiful. They're so precious. Every child is a thought of God. And if you think about it, without children, we'd go extinct, along with the dodo birds and dinosaurs, and just be a memory. So I know that's not really a problem. Someone was talking about the population expanding at an amazing rate, but still, every child is precious, and it's our task as societies, as culture, as institutions, as faiths to come together and protect those children and to teach them. And to teach them is all of life. Okay, I would like to talk about what I see as like 4 pillars of education. Education is like a seat at the table or a chair, right? And faith is so important. We were talking about faith and science, how they don't exclude each other, but they really go hand in hand. I think it's the same with education, because faith is the one thing that answers the question why. Science and technology doesn't really answer that question. We can learn about how things work. We can do studies. But faith answers that question why. It doesn't matter what faith we come from. I come as a Christian, as a believer in Jesus. There's many faiths represented here. But I think all major world religions do hold the idea of the golden rule about doing good to others or treating other people as we would like to be treated. And that's such a wonderful principle to base education on. So education doesn't just happen in school or in university. It starts at home. It starts in the family. And I know that's a whole other topic, but the importance of family, of marriage, the traditional role of a husband and wife in a family, science shows, social sciences repeatedly show that's the strongest model to raise children. Because all children are the same. They have the same needs, the same, I've been around the world traveling for my church, and everywhere you see the same smiles, the same joys, the same spark in the eye, the same tears, the same needs of children: food, security, love, a home, a purpose. And so family is so important. Any policy that strengthens family will help education. So faith, family, schooling. We've heard a lot from these from many of you that know more about what's important about curriculum and schooling, and also some of these initiatives to make sure that's fair and just throughout the world. That is very important. And the other thing, we can build the best schools, have good curriculums, but if we don't have teachers that are passionate about bringing that quest to children, showing them what's important, to ask questions, to show interest, and to feed that thirst for truth and knowledge. So passionate teachers. I don't know how many of you are planning to be teachers from the students here, but hopefully we need teachers, not just rocket scientists. But rocket scientists could be good teachers too. So faith, family, schooling, education, and finally community. Community, that's all of us. So what's around a person's life, the neighbors, groups, associations, villages, and faith communities, congregations, temples, people coming together to worship, to support each other. We need communities around families, around children, around schools to support, to sometimes pick up the tab when things aren't going so well or there's challenges. We know how many, the family is an endangered unit in our world, especially in the Western world. And so the community has to come together and provide that support and structure. So I think those are the 4 important pillars or legs of this chair of education. And the idea of, I think society, we will rise or fall on how we treat the smallest, the least, the most discriminated group of people. I don't care if that's a religious group, a cultural group, a race. And so let's pay attention to that. And we each have to speak up for truth. We each have to speak up for freedom in our own homes and countries. I feel that responsibility in my own country to protect anybody that's being discriminated against. I've heard from some Christian brothers and sisters here that there's sometimes difficulty in this country, and I know it's so encouraging to see this event, to know that you all will speak up for those that are sometimes suffering, like in Maripur. And wherever we are in the world, there's struggles. There's going to be problems. Let's come together. Let's speak up for the disenfranchised, for those that are being discriminated against. Let's speak up for children, because that's the future. So God bless you all, and thank you for being here.
Thank you very much. You really focus on, you're the third speaker to talk about the importance of weaving an understanding of religion into education. There, in fact, is an interesting study that UCLA conducts every year, and this is sort of idiosyncratic to America perhaps, but it focuses on freshmen entering college and seniors graduating. And they ask the question, what is among your highest priorities in your education? And frequently in the 75 to 85% range every year is they want to be able to address the great global questions of why, who am I, why am I here, what is the good, how should I live my life? When they graduate, 85% say their education was totally unsatisfying in terms of addressing those questions. Now, again, that may be idiosyncratic to America, but it reflects a desire, a passionate desire, and it does reflect a failure of a significant sort as well. I also am struck by the fact that you highlight family, community, and so forth as a significant part of the educational process, so foundational, which raises the issue of social policies, government social policies that deal with family stability, with social cohesion and stability. Something that we frequently sort of separate from our thinking about education, but perhaps your insight is we shouldn't be separating it. That should be central. So thank you very much. Professor Sheldon. Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped over my good friend Vishal.
Thank you, Michael. I'm not sure if everyone's able to hear me at the back, but quite a few of you will not be able to see me. Hello, everyone. My name is Vishal, and it's an honor to be here. Okay. See me, but you can't hear me. Can you hear me now? Okay, thank you. I just want to share some reflections of what I've heard so far and give my own perspective to it. I think Michael started very beautifully with giving us data from across the world about the number of millions of children who are vulnerable. Let me add a bit of nuance to that. Who is a vulnerable child, say in today's context of India? I've met an 11-year-old many years back who had stopped going to school. And the reason he stopped going to school is when he used to go to school, the teacher used to beat him up because he didn't have a clean uniform and he didn't have proper shoes. And the reason he didn't have a clean uniform and he didn't have proper shoes was because he didn't have a father. The father had left the family, and his mother was not capable of taking care of him and his younger sister. And she was in and out of prison many a time. So there was no one at home to help this 10-year-old get ready for school. But he wanted to go to school. So he got dressed, went to school, but got thrown out of school. He got beaten up so many times that one fine day he decided to stop going to school. And he became a thief in the neighborhood. Why would he steal? Again, because there was no mother to feed him. There was no father around. So he used to steal small things from the neighborhood, sell it to a local shop, and get enough money, 5 rupees, 10 rupees, to buy food for himself and his sister, who was 5 or 6, every year. In many parts of northeast India, because of landslides, kids can't attend school for months on end. In many other parts of India, entire families migrate from their villages to another city in another state for labor and harvesting. So they're not in school for 4 or 5 months. When they come back, they're in the next grade already. What have they learned? These are realities of kids just in India. The education system, the way it's designed today, it is not working for the majority of our kids because it's a one-size-fits-all design. In a highly complex, fast-changing world, and there are many students here, I'm sure you're sitting with the same questions of who will I be, what is my identity, what will I do when I get out of college? The world is changing very, very fast. There was a research which said that 65% of the jobs that you are going to enter into in 5 years, 10 years, have not yet been created. But what you're studying is still relevant in the 1980s. And what you are judged on is examinations and academic success. There's another study which said that if the same conventional method of teaching continues, it will take 100 years or 6 generations for kids from countries like India, Brazil, Indonesia, South Africa, or many parts of Africa to catch up to the current levels of learning of kids in advantaged economies. So what do we need? We need a complete mindset shift around the role of education. We need to move from a siloed academic nature of education to a much wider whole person, whole being focus of education. Because we are not just a sum of the academic subjects that we learn. They don't even matter once we get out into the world. But we are truly, like someone said, a gift from God as a full human being. We have thoughts, we have ideas, we have vision, we have opinions, we have ways to shape our world. Do we today see education as a way that it will help us build our capacities to shape our world of the future? Do we see that the education I'm receiving today is going to help me shape the world 30 years from now, 20 years from now? We don't. We only see education as a pathway to get a job, for me to get better economically, for my family to get better economically. Now, what role do faith-inspired organizations play in this? A very, very critical role. Because faith-inspired organizations, or organizations that are invested in the idea of faith and religion, they understand the whole being. They understand that we are made of the body, the mind, the heart, the soul. And how do we now integrate these ideas into education ecosystems? How do we shift the lens of education from academics to well-being? Well-being not just of me as an individual, but of my family, of the larger society, and the planet. Who decided 40, 50 years back that it's a great idea to collect all our garbage and throw it inside the ocean, which is what we do with our garbage today? It was a highly educated group of people. Can we question what kind of education did they receive that they thought it was a good idea to collect garbage that we are creating and throw it into the ocean and not see the planet and all its other species and beings as a core element that makes all of us? How did we decide that we as humans are at the top of the hierarchy, top of the ecosystem? Because our education system has become narrow, just focused on numeracy and literacy. And faith-inspired organization can help us broaden our thinking of education. And that's my invitation to all of us sitting here. To think of education as something that helps us shape our present, but also the future of our world, of our planet, which includes all other species. Think of education that helps us become more empathetic, more kind. Think of education which helps this young 10-year-old who couldn't go to school create an environment, an ecosystem where even he can go to school and become the human being that can shape a truly empathetic, kind world for all of us. And each one of us in that journey are unique. And how do we celebrate that uniqueness while also knowing that each one of us belong together in a very relational way? In today's India, we're constantly hearing news that teachers in a particular school make children who are from a different community or from a lower caste sit on the floor while other kids sit on the chair. Recently, there was news that kids in a certain school said, we're not going to eat the midday meal which has been prepared by teachers who are Dalits. We all know of the news where a teacher encouraged her students to beat up a Muslim kid. Is that the role of education that we want? Is that the empathy and kindness and relationship we want to live in our society? And again, here the role of faith-inspired organizations is to help us, teachers, students, parents, policymakers, administrators, all of us, learn to become self-aware. How am I, as a teacher, bringing my own prejudices, biases, preconceived mindsets into my learning ecosystem? And how is that impacting the child in my classroom? A child who's sitting on the floor, believing that they're not good enough to sit on the chair, how will they grow up to be an adult who thrives, who believes they can shape our world? They can't. So we need these ecosystems to work together. Thank you.
Vishal, thank you very much. I think you raise and highlight significant issues. One is a theme that has run through this a bit, which is the interconnectedness of education to so many other things, to poverty, to the availability of technology that derives out of the inequities that exist in our system, environment, the availability of healthcare. I mean, all these things come together when one thinks about this ecosystem to create successful educational opportunities. I think that's very powerful, something we're hearing again and again. You focus on the need to rethink education, following up a bit on what Maria said, introducing sort of ethics, but even beyond that, the notion that we need to educate for the future. At every graduation, I tell our students two things. One is their education now, the moment I hand them their diploma, is outdated. And thank you for their tuition money, but now it is outdated. And two, they will have 3 careers during the course of their life, not 3 jobs, but 3 careers, at least 2 of which haven't been invented yet. And we need to think about that, and we need to think about an education that doesn't create people who think it is wise to dump garbage in the ocean. There is a fundamental shift you're talking about, which I think is very interesting, very, very profound. Thank you. Let me turn now to Professor Sheldon for the second time.
Good morning, everyone. In South Africa, we say "Molweni nonke." I think everybody knows, or most of you in the room knows, that Nelson Mandela, the former and late president of South Africa, is an internationally known anti-apartheid revolutionary leader who had a profound impact on promoting world peace and an impact on promoting sustainability and an impact on promoting education. In 2017, our institution got approval from the Nelson Mandela Foundation to change our institution's name to the Nelson Mandela University. And I would like to thank the organizers today to give me the opportunity to share how we as an institution are instilling a values-based education and trying to give access to the learners in South Africa. The change of our institution's name to Nelson Mandela University set us on a trajectory of change to align what we're doing to embody his ethos and his values. As an institution, we embrace and honor his name and his legacy, and we take that with us into the 21st century. We take that with us in a responsibility for his legacy, ensuring that in everything that we do, in the way that we teach, in the way that we learn, in the way that we do research and innovation, in the way that we engage with our communities and our partners, in the way that we work, in the way that we live as staff, students, and alumni of this institution, that we always reflect his legacy and his ethos. As an institution, it's fine. Yeah. As an institution, we have 4 strategic intents that aligns with that ethos and that legacy of Nelson Mandela. The first is to liberate human potential through humanizing innovation, learning, and teaching experiences. And for us, the word humanizing means that we acknowledge that our staff and all our learners and students come to us with unique backgrounds, with unique experiences, with unique values, unique beliefs, and unique contributions that they can make, and that we acknowledge that in our learning and teaching, both in our staff and within our institutional legacy. The second focus area is around research, innovation, and internationalization. And the third focus area is around transformation and engagement through equalizing partnerships to co-create responsible solutions. And I want to emphasize here the word around co-creation, responsible solutions, because as an institution, we understand and we know that we cannot do this on our own. We need to engage with people that share our beliefs and our values and inculcate that through our engagement. Our fourth focus area is student access for success. So the focus here is firstly on providing access to a diverse range of students from previously marginalized communities. But while we want to give them access, we also want to ensure their success. Their success not only within the campus, but their success beyond the campus to become truly global citizens. I would like to share with you our values as an institution. If I can get the slide to move. We have 6 values as an institution, all linked to the name and the ethos of Nelson Mandela. Our first value is respect for diversity. We want to reflect and serve a diverse regional, national, and global community. We want to foster an environment in which diversity is appreciated, respected, and celebrated. We want to foster a culture that welcomes and respects diverse identities, heritage, and life experiences. Our second value as an institution is excellence. We want to encourage the pursuit of the highest level of not only academic excellence, but also civic and personal achievement. We want to provide a supportive and affirmative environment that enables our students, our staff, and the public to reach their full potential. Our third value is social justice and equality. We are dedicated as an institution to realization of a socially just, democratic society that promotes equality for all, irrespective of race, of gender, of sex, of marital status, of ethnicity, social origin, age, physical, learning abilities, nationality, religion, belief, culture, or language. We encourage mutually beneficial, equalizing partnerships and engagements with all our publics to co-create sustainable solutions. Our next value was previously touched on by another fellow panel member, that is Ubuntu. We are people-centered, values-driven university that seeks to foster a compassionate and a caring institutional culture. We want to recognize our mutual independence. And the next value for our institution is integrity. We as an institution commit ourselves to the highest standard of personal honesty and the moral character of everyone in our institution. We are dedicated to cultivating an atmosphere of trust, and we take responsibility for our decisions, our behavior, our actions, and the consequences thereof. And last but not least, the sixth value is sustainable stewardship. We are committed to environmental sustainability and recognize our responsibility to conserve, protect, and sustain all national resources, not only for the current, but also future generations. We are a university that is in pursuit of serving and being in service of society. And then lastly, I would like to end off by saying that we are proud to be a woman-led institution. As you can see, the chair of our council, Ambassador Nosipo January Badal, is a woman. Our chancellor, Dr. Geraldine Fraser Moleketi, is a woman. And our vice chancellor and principal, Professor Sibongile Mutwa, is a woman. As an institution, we not only want to give access to a diverse group of students, but we want to promote access for females. And as the Dean for Engineering, the Built Environment and Technology, I'm passionate about providing access to disciplines and careers for females that were previously perceived to be male-dominated environments. That is no longer the case. It is time for females to take up their place, and it's time for females to take up their space. I want to leave you with one last comment, which is, as an institution, I believe our mandate should be to prepare our students for future jobs that do not yet exist, to solve problems not yet defined, using technology not yet invented. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've talked a lot about values education, and you give real content to that by giving some ideas. I am reminded our university at Texas A&M University also has 6 values that you see plastered everywhere around the university: respect, excellence, leadership, loyalty, integrity, and service. I do worry occasionally that the more we talk about it, the less we do it sometimes, but the idea of embodying values in education is rarer than one might think, certainly in the United States, and I see that around the world as well. I also very much appreciate your calling attention to the need for gender opportunity, because gender equality unleashes an extraordinarily powerful component in terms of our capacity to improve our society and our world. So thank you very much. We're delighted to conclude today with Dr. Malhotra, who will speak. Dr. Kantek has apparently a day job and had to leave and do something with respect to his real job. So we turn it over to you. Thank you.
think I am now. So, very good afternoon to all of you. Let me start by saying, like many of the panelists, I'm a product of globalization of education. So, back at Penn State, I had lab mates from China, Turkey, Greece, one American too, someone from Canada and someone from France. So we had kind of a mini interfaith summit pretty much going on every day. And of course, my advisor's wife, who till her dying days said that she was my American mom. So on that note, let's start with the topic for the day. I'm going to be speaking about role of religion in education and how do we actually go about it. Let me start by acknowledging that scientifically we have made great, awesome progress through the years. I mean, just this morning session, if you were there, India landed a rover on the moon. Absolutely fantastic. AI, ML, nobody heard about it 20 years ago. Cybersecurity, nobody heard about it 30 years ago. I mean, forget about all this. 150 years ago, say that we would be flying on an equipment that would be heavier than air. I mean, must be crazy, right? So no denying that materialistically speaking, we are much, much better off than any other time in our history. But at the same time, I love going back to this quote, and I often have it on my WhatsApp DP. It was the Roman philosopher Seneca who said, 2,000 years ago, mind you, 2,000 years ago, he said, we suffer more in imagination than in reality. How true is that? How relevant is that today? So how far we have actually come and how little we have actually changed. And today's 16, 17 years old, and I'm sure all of us from the field of education, today's 20-year-old is actually going through an existential crisis. Today in mid-20s, you start getting a midlife crisis. Thanks to all the exposure you get on social media, things are happening much faster now. When I was 20, I'm sorry, I had so much better interest in life than wondering about the purpose of life and why am I here. But today's 20, 21-year-old is actually asking that. You know that, I know that. Are we doing a good job of us answering those questions? And let me tell you, the insecurities are just going to grow more and more with time. Yesterday we had a speaker saying 90% of the jobs that we know it are not going to exist by 2030. I mean, that figure is debatable. Let's say 50%. But as the insecurities grow, the labeling grows, the labels grow, and the polarization grows. Where do we find ourselves in education? Now, science, as the good pastor also said, has done a wonderful job. Let's acknowledge that. Science has done a wonderful job of answering the question, how? How do we do this? But only religion can answer the question, why? Why are we here in the first place? That being said, fortunately or unfortunately, all of us are in a similar mindset over here. That's why we are attending this conference. But there are many of our colleagues, all of us know it, who would balk at the sight of, or even raising the question, religion and education? No, no way. Many of our colleagues would actually have that opinion. And I hope, I was told that this is being telecast on YouTube channel also. If somewhere a copy of my speech today reaches my advisor, John Matthews, back in US, he's going to be in for a pleasant shock. So how do we go about bringing about religion in education? Firstly, let's take a step back. What is the purpose of education? According to me, the purpose of education is to nurture and mentor an individual to a journey of self-awareness and self-growth. Now tell me, can you do that without religion? So one way that we can and we should be using religion is, this is a term I picked up today from the conference, comparative religious studies. For those who say why should we be teaching about different faiths, different religions? I would like to ask them this question first. Where else would you like the students to get their information from? From WhatsApp University? From the media channels? And to my American friends, if you think that Fox News and CNN are polarized, before you leave this country, I would invite you to please switch on the Indian media news channels. So do we really want our students, our future generation, to learn about religion through hearsay, to learn about different faiths from people who don't even know what they're talking about? That is one. Second way, and this is important, please, all of us have to acknowledge this. Religion is a term that comes with a lot of heavy baggage. If I ask you to close your eyes now and say, think about religion, some image is going to come in your mind, some custom is going to come in your mind, some ceremony is going to come in your mind. It's not a blank slate. In fact, even before we are born, I mean not before we are born obviously, even before we begin to speak, before we begin to understand anything, all of us were exposed to some sort of religious ceremony, and most of us didn't have any choice when it comes to which religion should I choose. So religion, the term religion comes with a lot of connotations attached to it, which are very, very subjective. In fact, it's easier to teach a child calculus and triple integration, right, than teach him about his own religion. So how do we go about it? I would say we go about it by all of us meeting together at the common ground. In the end, don't we just want a happy life, a peaceful life? Isn't that what it's all about? And isn't that what all the religions are all about? So can we approach it in that manner? And let me actually give you a real-world example. All of us were at the World Peace Dome. We enjoyed the beautiful dome, the world's largest dome. But right now, we are at the World Peace Library. I don't know how many of you got the opportunity, but right at the center of the library, there is actually a very small room. I think Sir has been there. In the middle, there is a statue of Sant Gyaneshwar. All around, you have photos depicting all religions and the different terminologies they use and the different practices they use for meditation. In the end, isn't that what self-awareness is all about? Looking inside, turning inwards, reaching that place of inner stillness. Isn't that all the faiths would want us to go there? Yes, there is a lot that divides us, and we should celebrate that diversity. But more than that, there is a lot that actually unites us. And if we don't include this as part of our curriculum, if we don't give the students this experience as part of a formal education, you'll find we'll just go on running more and more after more and more, and the story is never going to end. My friends, science is going to continue to make one great advancement after another. We are going to thrive, but at the same time, there's a cost attached to it. And that is the reason that we have to include religion as part of our education. Thank you.
Doctor, thank you very much. You really highlight a couple of things we haven't talked a lot about today. One is progress, that we sometimes cite very discouraging statistics without thinking how much progress we've actually made. And I think that's an important thing to keep in mind, because we build on that progress. We don't tear it down, but we move forward by building on it. Much to do, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't respect what has been done and build on that and use that when appropriate. Very, very thoughtful. I would add to that the other thing that struck me as you are talking about the notion that education isn't solely limited to the notion of getting a job, or even, frankly, solving the problems that we have described here. They will be outgrowths of real education, which gives the person the capacity to realize their full potential, including their own happiness. Very, very nice. We are over time. I have a 45-minute summation, but I'm going to let you go to lunch instead. Join me, please, in thanking all of our panelists. I think we'll have them more formally thanked as well. But this was a terrific panel, of which summation is impossible, but tremendous food for thought and motivation, I hope, as well. Thank you so much.
And all these opinions come from our own experiences, our own study, our own perception. So today we were discussing, religion and education. One of the things I want to just share with you quickly, with the lack of time, but I would like to say, because what I heard about from one of the panelists about the textbooks or how the religion has been practiced and what happens in the reality. Age-old, religions start schools, it pass on the knowledge to the generations. I feel fortunate enough to born in India, where we have about 7 to 8 major religions. And this diversity fosters tolerance, provides exposure to the religious belief, various faiths, almost by the osmosis. We don't have to even try it. And another thing I distinctly remember, in 70s, every textbook I used to read had a pledge on its first page. First page, something along the lines of acknowledging that all the religions, while different in practice, share a common goal of reaching the divine and achieving the enlightenment. So different parts of the world has different take on the religious education system. But one of the things I was thinking to summarize, how it should be done in terms of policy, how we can include religious houses while framing the policy framework so that we can provide it to the government, and then it will work as a blueprint. So today, we gather to reflect on the profound role of the religion have played throughout the history, not only shaping the societies, molding values, guiding moral compasses, but they have fostered an understanding of ethics, morality, and the human conditions. The teaching of various faiths often emphasizes importance of compassion, empathy, and inclusivity. So one of the things is noticeable. All the religions across the globe share common principles of truth, love, compassion, tolerance. But basically, the reason I'm saying this underlying principle is the ethical values. Yesterday, we had another discussion about technology and religion. It's a similar thing. People were talking about how to be ethical while bringing out the technology. I would say the same thing, looking at the religious practices. Be ethical when you are teaching religion to the students, young minds. Ask them to, allow them to interpret all those values on their own, but underlying principles are the same. As far as government policies are concerned, we can always use these formalized religious bodies. They can work with the government, they can work with the parents, because religion is such a thing that it reaches where the formal education may not be available for many of the population. And while using religion in our education system, one of the cautionary note that please keep it in mind, we always forget only 20 to 30% of the people are middle class, having access to interfaith religious practices, different cultures. So we have to be really cautious while putting the religion into practice, because there are a lot of misinterpretations, misguided principles, factions are available. And that's the real reason we have to have formalized policy, formalized structure while teaching the religions. And not only that, even our teachers, we should train them to put the objectivity while teaching this particular subject. That's all my point of view is. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I know we have questions from the audience, but I have been instructed under certain various draconian penalties to terminate our panel right now. But I do invite you to come up after. I'm sure that some of the panelists will be happy to stay around for a few minutes. And please feel free to come up and talk with them and raise issues and make comments as well. But with that, thank you very much.
Today, I believe, has given us all present here a much better position towards the global perspective of education. The discussion which took place ranged from the bias in education through text, which still exists in the present time, to the absolute importance of refined education for the betterment of society. Let's all give the panelists a huge round of applause for this opportunity and immense knowledge that they've shared with us. Finally, coming to the conclusion, I would like to invite our moderator, Dr. Anil Hiwale, to give us the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. On behalf of the organizing team of G20, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to all the distinguished panelists of this session on global perspectives on education. It was indeed a great session from the eminent panelists from across the globe. Thank you so much for bringing in a whole lot of perspectives on the theme of the session, which really made the session very informative, interesting, and thought-provoking. Firstly, I would like to thank the moderator, Professor Michael Young, for setting the tone for panel discussion and then wonderfully steering the session. Can we have a round of applause for moderator? I would like to thank all the other esteemed panelists, all other 8 panelists. In the interest of time, I won't again repeat the names, for presenting very significant points related to the theme of the session, and various points covered like ethics and values in education, instilling moral codes, inclusive education, quality of education, value-based universal education, and how education can be structured that can help resolving conflicts, reduce corruption, and so on and so forth. What is the role of religion in education and all? These are the points all the eminent panelists have talked about. My thanks are also due to all the senior academicians, deans, directors, industry partners, other delegates from India and abroad who are attending this particular session, my other faculty members and students from MIT WBU as well. I'd like to thank the coordinators, rapporteurs, volunteers for smooth conduct of this session. Last but not the least, thanks to the organizing team of G20 for allowing us to be the part of this great session. Thank you. Thank you so much. May I invite Vishwesh for further announcements, please.
Thank you, sir. Without taking more time, I'll just make a few quick announcements. Lunch will be served outside for the students at 1 p.m. at the Pendal. The LOs are requested to please guide the delegates towards their respective positions with their kits. And yes, finally, we can have this session concluding. Thank you so much for being here and attending this session and being a great audience. Thank you.